Hi, I'm Jen from Tea Leaves and Tweed, and welcome to another sunrise tea session. This morning, I'm going to be tasting the Pure Bud Imperial Grade Chun green tea from Yunnan Sourcing. This is actually a spring 2018 tea, so this was just picked. This is a very special green tea, and its name is actually a little bit cute. So the name means green snail of spring because it is a green tea. It's picked in the spring, and the leaves are rolled so they look like little tiny snails, as you'll see in a minute. This is a tea that is very prized for its complex and delightful flavor. And it is also the first tea that I've gotten from Yunnan Sourcing, a site that has both a US-based site and a site in China where they have a much bigger selection. So I've just placed my first few orders from them, and I'm really excited to try this tea. So let's brew. So I'm brewing in gawan today, and I don't actually have any water in this gawan right now because I don't need to warm it up because I can use the rinsing water to warm the gawan a little bit. So here are my tea leaves. You can see they're little curly tails that look kind of like little snails. And these are all just individual tea buds picked from the very youngest top of the tea plant, and they will unroll as I steep. So let's steep. So Scott at Yunnan Sourcing recommends you do a quick rinse of this tea before you start to brew. So I've got my water here. It's actually about 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Scott recommends water at about 90 degrees Celsius, which is about 194 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a little bit warm for green tea, the way I've usually done it, but I'm gonna give it a try and see how it goes. So now I've done my rinse. I can just throw that out. And now, like many delicate Chinese green teas, this only infuses for several seconds at each steeping. So I'm gonna add my water, and I'm gonna steep this for about 20 seconds using my little watch to time. This is from a town called Mojiang in China, and it's a very special, interesting tea. It's supposed to be very fragrant. In fact, the original name was translated as scary fragrance because the woman who was picking the tea was so startled by the aroma coming off of her tea. So you can see it's gone kind of a green yellow color, and the little leaves have started to unroll. But I think they still have some more to give us. The tea liquor itself is a very, very pale yellow green for the first infusion. So let's give it a taste. So first I'm going to smell the lid of my gawan. Ooh, it's very, very vegetal. It smells a bit like damp hay. Really, it does smell so much like spring. This is one of those teas that's supposed to be kind of, like I mentioned to the robins several weeks ago, it's kind of a harbinger of spring. And the leaves themselves smell almost soupy, like a very green vegetable soup. It's a very delicate flavored tea, but it's got a very smooth, almost thick mouthfeel. As it develops on my tongue, I get that savory umami quality that I'm smelling in the leaves. I think this one is going to become extremely wonderful after a couple more infusions. So I'm gonna finish my cup of tea, and then why don't you join me for a second infusion of this tea? So they recommend steeping this the second time by adding on about 15 seconds to the steeping time. So I'm going to give this 35 seconds. I should say I started with about 5 grams of dry leaf in my gawan, and we'll just let that steep for another 35 seconds. It's another 15 to 20 seconds now. These short steepings of these Chinese teas make for a lovely tea session because you spend more time enjoying and drinking your tea than you do waiting for it to brew, like some teas. So I do like these teas. So now it's been about 35 seconds. The leaves have started to unroll even more. You can see these fat green tea buds starting to show themselves. The tea liquor is a darker color as well. It's almost a warm golden color instead of the very, very green color that I've seen in other green teas. So let's give it a taste. Oh, I smell sweetness coming from the leaves now that I didn't smell last time. It's a fruity sweetness. It's almost a malty grain style sweetness. I'm excited to taste this one. Beautiful. It's thick tasting almost and very, very smooth. I don't get any astringency yet. I wonder if it's because I used slightly cooler water than is recommended. I did bring my kettle to 194 before I brought it outside, but while I was setting up, it's probably cooled off a bit. I get the kind of damp hay and grass notes and a little bit of graininess. It doesn't taste sweet on the tongue like it smelled. And maybe just the faintest whisper of bitterness in the very back of my throat. Maybe that's the astringency, just a little tiny bit of tannin and bitterness in the very back of my throat. Wow. I want to see what this tea does for a third steeping. So I'm going to finish this cup, and then I hope you'll watch as I steep this a third time. So we're back for our third steeping. This one will be for 45 to 50 seconds. And I'll talk a little bit about my teaware. Don't know if I've mentioned before, this little green gawan was my very, very first gawan that I ever got. It was a gift from my mother. And I have another one. She actually gave me two. So I have one that I keep at home and one that I keep at work. It used to have a little saucer, as you probably remember, but I broke it a few weeks ago, which was sad, but it doesn't affect the way it works. And then the teacup was also a gift from my mother. My mother gifts me a lot of things to do with tea. And this comes from a collection by Royal Albert of their Decades collection, and I believe this is the 1950s teacup. So we're at about 45-ish seconds. It's the same kind of warm gold color. The leaves have almost completely unrolled here. You can see It's just the very, very tip of the bud of the tea. It's been rolled up into those little snails. So let's give it a taste. Oh, I get a lot more of the grain fragrance. This does have a beautiful fragrance. Though I could see how it could be a little startling if it just started coming out of the tea you were carrying as it got warmed in the sun. This infusion has almost a juicy flavor to it. It doesn't have the acidity of most fruits. Definitely not something like a citrus. Maybe something like a very, very ripe plum, but without the sugary sweetness, just a kind of fruity quality. Well, this has been a thoroughly lovely tea. I've enjoyed shopping with Yunnan Sourcing, and I've definitely enjoyed my first impression of this first tea of theirs that I've tried. I'm excited to try the rest of their offerings that I've purchased over the last couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. We definitely have a few more coming in the coming weeks. Thank you for joining me this morning, and I hope you'll join me again soon. Bye.